Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
Welcome back to the show. We are joined once again by Tina Wankey. Excited to have her back here to talk all about her wellness coaching and helping you reclaim power over your own health, whether you're struggling physically, emotionally, or both. Now is the time to really take control. And she joins us again here live today. How are you?
Good. How are you doing?
Good, good, except the voice, getting over a
Yep.
cold, but I do feel okay. And yourself?
Doing well. Doing well. It's getting a little warmer here, so I'm excited for some warmer days versus cool days.
And you're in Wisconsin?
Yes, in Wisconsin. Yeah. Yeah.
All right. And the name of the company is Roots of Healing. So if we want to reach out to you, go to rootsofhealing.org. And
Yes.
also, just for a little bit of your background today, before we
Mhm.
get into the topic of reclaiming power over your mind when it comes to your weight, just give us a little
Yes.
bit of your credentials and background, please.
Yes. Yes. So I am a holistic therapist and wellness coach. So throughout the years, I have learned different things, added different modalities to my practice to help people reclaim power over their health. So looking at if they need the traditional counseling, they need that aspect. If they need the hypnotherapy, if they need to address their wellness, to look at what's happening with them physically, and also looking at the energetic side of things too. So there's a number of different modalities that I pull from, and I pull from those depending on the client and what their needs are. So it all comes out of that talk that we have to discuss what's going to best help them.
Beautiful. Well, thank you again for being here. And I guess we should get started, right? So, you
Yeah.
mentioned carrying extra weight, how that can really impact all areas of a person's life, especially their mental health.
Yes, yeah. So when you carry that extra weight, it can be so frustrating and it can be uncomfortable. It can impact us again, like in all areas of our life, personally, professionally, but especially in that mental part, because there can be such a beat up that we have on ourselves. Like we can just beat ourselves up for that extra weight being there and why it's there and why we can't get rid of it. So it can lead to feeling anxious. It can lead to feeling depressed, stressing about it, just thinking about it all the time, and just creating stress within you about the whole situation. And then isolating. Like if you have extra weight on, sometimes you don't want to go out in public. You don't want people to see you. You don't want people to be staring at you and drawing attention to yourself. So you might stay home instead of going out to something to interact with other people. So it can impact you at work, how you feel at work, how you interact with other people at work. And it can get inside your head and it can really mess with how you feel about yourself. So, talking about authentic self in a past podcast, and then your self esteem, the confidence level that you have in yourself, all of those things are impacted. So, and it it just is all encompassing when it comes to mental health, physical health, and everything when that extra weight is on. So it can be really detrimental to people. And I've had the weight on and I brought weight off, and I still continue to work on getting some weight off that I have on yet. And because it's all a process. And one of the things that I've been looking at too is stress, so we'll be talking about stress and how that impacts that. So when we look at the weight, some of the statistics that are out there is right now, 41.9% of Americans are considered obese. And when you think about that, that's
Wow.
almost half. Like when I look
Wow.
at that
I didn't know
statistic,
that was that. Wow.
yeah,
That's
it's a high number. And it was shocking when I looked at it because I've always, paid attention to it, and it just keeps creeping up. And then especially after 2020, there was, an
uh,
influx, so there was a big impact. And again, part of that comes from that stress aspect. And then when you look at how many people go on diets a year, 45 million Americans go on diets every year. And most times people go on diets and then they might get some weight off, but then they don't maintain, or they end up going, they end up putting the weight back on plus. So people are constantly yo-yoing through, with these diets and everything, which disrupts your metabolism and makes it worse. But it's a really high percentage, and which correlates and makes sense to 41.9% of Americans being obese. But it's not just Americans, it is other countries too. It is totally not just us. So, but it is an issue and it's a struggle for many people, and it really does mess with the head. So I want to take and address like looking at like how can we help that part? What's tripping people up all the time? Like why can't they just keep going? Why can't they get to the weight that they want to get to, and why can't they maintain? Why do they go backwards? Like what's all happening? What is creating that environment for that to happen? Because it's a frustrating cycle to be in. So that struggle for why that's there. And I want to acknowledge first that some people do have physical reasons. It might be medications like depression meds can make you gain weight. There's different meds that can cause weight gain, and then it's kind of out of your control unless you're not on the med, because the med's just influencing that weight gain. And there might be physical things going on, hormones, thyroid, things of that nature that might be causing an issue for you to be able to release weight. So I want people to know that it's not just, it's not a fix for everyone, because it depends on what's going on in the body. So I just want to make sure I acknowledge that, because you don't want people to be thinking that I'm thinking it's just an easy fix, and we just got to change some things and it's all good. Like I totally understand there's other things that can influence that. So when we do look at it, what I want to focus on are like those thoughts, those beliefs, and then the behaviors that stem from it.
Yeah. Why is it such a struggle for so many?
Yep,
I guess it goes back to that. Yeah, please.
Yep. Yeah. Because it really is. I mean, we probably talk to one person a day, and someone's, might say something, about their weight, or might be thinking it, but they may not be saying it, or feeling uncomfortable where they're standing. So when we look at those thoughts and beliefs, we want to go back to like how those beliefs started, because our beliefs about our weight, how we're supposed to look, all of those things were instilled in us, and can be instilled like from an early age, depending on your household that you grew up in. Was there a focus on weight? Was there a focus on eating a certain way, whether it was good or bad? Like, where did our beliefs come around food? Who's influencing how we think about food, how we think about body image, and all of those things. And when we think about that and we really start to look at, okay, what started it? Well, what happens is, let's say someone makes a comment about how you look in clothing, like that's too tight for you, like you need a bigger size or something like that. Then we have this little seed planted in our mind, and in our mind we got that seed that says, oh, that didn't look right. I wasn't accepted. Someone made a judgment on me. And maybe it didn't faze you that first time, but then maybe you hear other comments. So as you start to hear maybe judgments that were made, bullies, friends, it could, family situation, mom wants you to look a certain way, and maybe you're heavier, or even it can also be the opposite side too, where you're too thin. And it's like, you got to put some weight on. It can go both ways. But as those seeds are planted, those thoughts start to build a neural network. There's connections that happen. So you start with one thought, and then you have other things that happen, and they just reinforce the thought before. So as that's reinforced, it's building a stronger and stronger connection. So let's say you go to starting to eat a food because you're stressed. You get nervous and you're going to the candy bar. Then that candy bar, there's a connection that starts to be made that it gives you comfort. When realistically, the candy bar is not giving you comfort. It's just the thought that you have that if I eat this candy bar, the candy bar makes me feel better. That's just a thought. The candy bar really doesn't make you feel better. It's just that thought. So the networks keep building and building and building, and then you look at marketing that's out there. You see the ads that are happening, and you just see, the reinforcement of, Snickers, like going to eat a candy bar, like if you're hangry or something like that. There's all different types of commercials that are out there that are trying to get you to eat a certain way. So when we start to eat a certain way, when we feel a certain way, we're thinking the food's going to make us feel better. So it becomes reinforced, which goes into that idea of like with Pavlov's dog, that there's that reinforcement that happens. Maybe you see a food, and it triggers you to like, oh, I need to have that because I'll feel better if I have that. Or if you're at a party, how often you get to the party, do you go straight to the food? That's like a learned habit in a sense. Oh, we got to go check out what food they're having. What are the snacks that we get to have? The hors d'oeuvres or the desserts that are there. Coffee. We can do things without thinking. Got to have that morning cup of coffee before you get started. Those are all things that we have learned because we made connections with them as to what type of state they put us in. So when we create that awareness, it gives us an understanding of, okay, why am I going to that? Why am I going to those certain foods? When are they really doing for me what I think they're doing? Because many times they're not. So we really want to look at how to take and deprogram that. Okay. We need to be able to break that wiring and create new wiring. So one thing I want to mention before we jump into some of the stress and everything, so that's the next topic, is the sugar addiction part. So like there's physical reasons for why people might have struggles or medications, with their weight. But sugar addiction is something it's people don't realize how big it is because sugar addiction lights up the part of the brain that lights up cocaine, but it lights it up even brighter. And there's a reason why, because biologically, like evolutionary wise, we are programmed to crave sweets. We're programmed to crave them so that before winter comes, we're putting on the weight that we need to get through winter. So we actually are programmed to crave sweets, which makes it harder. It makes it harder to break that. So then you're trying to break that connection with the sugar, but then you have, like a sugar monster, like you need to eat it, just eat it, you'll feel better, just eat it, and you're trying to fight that. So we have that piece of us that has natural cravings for sugar, but there's also that psychological part that gets tied into it, and we can address that part. So when we are looking at this idea of what's tripping us up on the psychological part, we really want to look at how to break it, how to rewire the mind so that it doesn't want to go to those foods anymore. Like it'll want to go to the healthy foods. It'll want to go to those foods that put us in a better state, that actually we physically feel better eating instead of the junk foods that we might be going to, the processed foods, all of those things. So we want to break going back to the old ways, going back to the way we used to be. You want to be able to create and sustain a different way of being around food, not just a diet.
Got it. You got to establish new behaviors, I like when you mentioned Pavlov's dog, right? Because that whole ringing the bell, I remember that story from elementary school, I think it was. But yeah, wow.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's just remind everyone quickly, Tina, how we can reach out to you.
Yes, you can reach me at rootsofhealing.org. You can fill out a form there and I will get back to you as soon as I get that. Otherwise, you can call me at 920-277-6738.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And we'll continue the conversation today here again, talking about this and now about these reinforcements and struggles. Let's how do you start to stop it? When you
Yeah.
have all these beliefs around you, what are some of the things we
Yeah.
can start doing?
Yeah. So first it's addressing stress. So many people are stressed, and when we're stressed, it slows our metabolism down. And we're not going to be able to lose the weight that we want to lose because our body's saying we need to keep it on because it's not safe. And majority of people are in a stress state throughout the day. And there's things that stress us like work, family, traffic, things like that. So what we need to do is to get that stress down and get it to a place where we're telling the body that, hey, we don't have to be stressed all the time. So just physically, like doing movement, meditation, deep breathing, you can do sound therapy. And a big one is letting go of the past and the future and just being present. Because what happens is we look back at the past as to what you didn't do and why the weight's there. And then you're looking at, I want to get it off, but I'm not getting it off. Or like it's not coming fast enough. Like, when is it going to happen? But if we get focused on the now, so getting our stress levels into a calmer place, getting rid of all that mumbo jumbo in our head about the past with the weight, and then trying to focus too heavily on the future, but just being in the present and what can be done now, those things are going to help because that stress really does need to come down because it makes a difference. So after we take and address that stress or tie it into the next thing, which is the hypnotherapy, because we can plant in with hypnotherapy to be calm and relaxed, not to focus on the past, to be in the present and doing what you can do now in this moment versus what you need to do in the future, like just planning for now. So when it comes to that hypnotherapy, this is an opportunity for you to cut the ties, cut the cords with how you thought about food, how you felt about your body, how you feel about your body, and create how you want to be moving forward. So it's an opportunity to just let go of how things have been and focus in the now, moving forward. So, a little bit about hypnotherapy. Hypnotherapy is not about being in a deep trance. It is not about being in the state that you're completely unaware. I cannot make people do stupid human tricks. I always tell people that. I can't make you do those. And an interesting thing I learned is that when you go to those shows where they do that, those people actually, in conscious awareness, would be willing to do some of those tricks anyways. So you can't like make somebody do something that they don't want to do. But when you do the hypnotherapy that I do, you're just literally, it's like you have your eyes closed and you're just a little more relaxed. It's not this, it's not this like deep, you don't know what's happening.
Hmm.
You're fully aware. And some people are like, am I in it? Am I not in it? And I can tell if you're not in it. But most times people are in the hypnotherapy. And you're just in a relaxed state. And we go into the subconscious part of your mind. And that's the mind, the part of the mind where it holds why
Okay.
things are happening the way they are. So consciously, we might be able to think, well, I know because mom said this, or my friend said this, I was bullied at school for my weight, or, whatever it may be, you might be able to consciously come up with those. But when you go into that subconscious part, and even if we end up touching on some of those things you're aware of on a conscious level, when you do it on a subconscious level, it brings it's in a different awareness. So it's like all of a sudden your mind's just looking at it a little differently. So after we bring in some of those events that have caused the reason for like why you don't want to let go of the weight, sometimes we keep weight on to protect ourselves. There might be a reason for it. And we try to find out, is there a reason that it's a struggle to get this weight off, to release it? What is happening there? Why can't I lose this weight? I'm trying, but is there something subconsciously that might be tripping you up? Because sometimes it can be a protective factor as to why we're keeping weight on.
Yeah.
And then we break we break the ties. We take a break and get the mind to understand that this is something that's in the past. We don't need it to impact us anymore. We can move forward in a different way. And then we can take and let go of that. We really get the mind to disconnect it. And then in the last parts of the session, this is the part where people get to create their ideal self. And this is where we look at, okay, how do you want to be moving forward? Like, what is your ideal person? You know, if you were being your authentic self, living your authentic life, what would that look like? And then we would incorporate in there how a person wants to be. And then we'll incorporate things such as how you want to feel about eating healthy food and how you want to be around maybe foods that you don't want to eat, like you want to get rid of or just reduce. So you're not eating them all the time. So we take and program, rewire the brain to start thinking differently. And one of the pieces that I incorporate in there too is to be excited about eating those healthy foods, like, feeling good about it, because you want to kind of create that space, that feeling that you want to have when you're going and eating healthy foods and enjoying them, because you do feel better. But sometimes we just got to get our mind, to get our bodies to start wanting to have those foods, because we've been eating such horrible food. We don't even realize, how good it feels to eat the healthy food until we're consistently eating it again. So we can take and we can rewire the brain to how we want it to be firing moving forward so that we can heal. And we'll incorporate singing bowls and tuning forks into that process to help someone. And then the person listens to the recording for 21 days. It's just like a habit. So you want to reinforce what was happened in the session, and then we want to take and create more change from there. So they just listen to it. It's like 15 to 20 minutes. And once a day, you can listen to it while you're awake, or you can fall asleep to it. So it's really an amazing process to go through. And when it comes to that weight being there, that stress, I mean, people can really beat themselves up over it and feel frustrated, which doesn't help trying to get rid of the weight. But we need to add in that piece that's that mindset, because just trying to change food tends to feel temporary for a lot of people instead of permanent, and then they revert back. So we really want to get in the mind as to why do you keep going to these foods? Why do you keep trailing backwards, instead of moving forward? That's going to be the whole goal when it comes to that hypnotherapy, is to break that cycle so people can move forward and then feel good about themselves in their skin, feeling excited to be who they are and living their authentic self.
Beautifully said. Well, we still have a few minutes left to continue with this. And wow, you're just a plethora full of information. You're awesome. So clearly, you say we could work on this, one thing at a time. Do you want to give a little summary as to why hypnotherapy may be right for some of you right now that are listening?
Great. Yeah. Yeah. So if you're feeling like you're struggling, if you're feeling like I can't
Yeah.
break free from it, I go on a diet and I'm going back and forth, up and down, you're having struggles and you want to get healthy, like you're really like at that fed up state where I want to make some changes. I need to make some changes and I'm dedicated to making the changes. Then looking at the hypnotherapy and seeing if it's best for you. There's some, like if someone has epilepsy, seizures, things like that, we cannot do the hypnotherapy. So that might be a situation where it would not be appropriate. So we have to take that into account. But if we'll talk about that health history to see if there's anything that maybe wouldn't work for doing hypnotherapy, and also keeping in mind, this is a tool. Sometimes it works one session and they might be done, but some people need more, and it may take a few sessions, and that's totally okay, because it took it takes people a while to get to where they're at. So it can take a little bit of time to get some of that stuff reversed, because it depends on how deep it is and what's rooted in it and what's all connected with it. So having that conversation and talking about, okay, this is where I'm at, this is what I'm struggling with, and not being embarrassed about it, and knowing you're not going to be judged at all for no matter what you're thinking, your thought patterns are, or anything, or your behaviors. Absolutely no judgment. It's all about just getting you to a place where you can be who you want to be and be in a healthier state.
Perfect. Aw, thank you so much. Tina, how can we reach out to you directly and to get started for an initial conversation?
Yes. And you can reach me at rootsofhealing.org. You can fill a form out on the bottom of the page. Otherwise, you can contact me at my phone number, 920-277-6738.
All right. Thank you so much for being here. Always so thorough, on point. I appreciate that. And thank you for helping us here today. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right. Have a great day and looking
You
forward
too.
to our conversation next week. We back on?
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
Good. Thank you again. Have a great day.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Are you looking for even more of the podcasts and hosts that you love? The Podcast Business News Network is proud to announce that you now have even more ways to listen live. Check out the MyTuner Radio, online radio box, and Simple Radio apps on iOS and Android, or find us online. Search for Business News Network on mytuner-radio.com, or search Podcast Business News Network on streama.com and onlineradiobox.com/US. Take your podcast on the go and don't miss a minute of the action.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
For nearly 2,000 severely injured veterans, everyday life has become filled with barriers.
Day-to-day simple tasks can become pretty daunting.
I have to carry my chair up 2 flights of steps or have somebody do it for me.
What scares me the most is just the falling.
When I'm struggling with my house, I think, to have that one great barrier just knocked down, it's crucial.
Home for Our Troops is a wonderful nonprofit that builds a
mortgage-free, fully adaptive, handicap-accessible house.
And there's no catch.
It'll be our very first home that we've ever owned. This is a game changer.
This is where your life begins again.
We need you to join us in completing this important mission. Please visit hfotusa.org and help build homes and rebuild lives.
Because of you, everything's going to be okay.